Silver bells, silver bells. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that was supposed to be a Jingle Bell Rock. I have no idea what happened to this world. Okay, I don't have a lot of time. So, test on political behavior and political socialization tomorrow. 50 questions. I think only 8 of them are from those essays, but make sure you read those essays. 8 out of 50 is still a lot of points. Okay, so let's first start off by core American political values. Liberty, equality, opportunity. What do we mean by these terms? Liberty, of course, we mean liberty, but we don't mean license. You have the freedom to do what you want as long as it doesn't interfere with other people's freedoms. Equality, what do we not mean? Well, we don't mean equality of results. We don't mean everybody looks the same or acts the same or has to have the same economic outcomes, but you do have to have a basic level of equality of opportunity, legal equality. And of course, we believe in things like justice, and we believe in things like opportunity for all. These are core American values. Really, when we talk about America's political culture, the best book to read is Alexis de Tocqueville's Democracy in America, 1835, where he talks about some of the things that makes America unique. Having a fluid hierarchy, being born free from Europe, kind of virtuous materialism, where we can pursue our own material interess in a virtuous way, in such a way that doesn't hurt everybody else. So Alexis de Tocqueville is really the best when it comes to our political culture. Now, also don't forget when we talk about levels of trust in government. Levels in trust in government were very high throughout the 1950s, halfway through the 1960s, and then they precipitously fell off. You have a few reasons for this. It really started with Vietnam, it doubles down with Watergate, and then you have some societal trends. In general, we have, with Watergate, it ushered in the era of investigative journalism, Woodward and Bernstein, trying to not just report the news, but figure out why things are happening. And so nowadays you have this kind of merry-go-round of scandals that kind of lowers the trust in government from a kind of national perspective. So make sure you remember that as well. Now, most of the test questions tomorrow are about political socialization. And political socialization is the process whereby we acquire political beliefs. And there are a lot of things that impact what our political beliefs are. Remember, most Americans are not liberal or conservative. They're moderates. They're independents. And there are all kinds of things that affect the way that they look at politics. Now, number one, of course, is family. Family is the most powerful thing that impacts your political socialization. Liberal parents produce liberal children. Conservative parents produce conservative children. Now, it lessens on specific issues, and it lessens as you get older, but it's still the most important influence. That's why we have Kennedys and Bushes that seem to carry on the tradition. Second would be gender. Women, you have this term called the gender gap. Women in general tend to be a little bit more democratic in their voting patterns than men. Not overwhelming, but Barack Obama won the women vote by 13%. And you have these other issues where we talk about, targeting genders. Soccer moms in 1996, the war on women in 2012, NASCAR dads in 2004. Women tend to focus more on national domestic issues. Men tend to focus a little bit more on foreign policy and issues of international relations. Now, moving on, let's talk a little bit about geography. When you're talking about places in the country, the Solid South was that term was coined to describe the Democrats' role in the South. Now it's really to describe the Republicans' role in the South. But you have very strong epicenters of liberalism in the West Coast, California, Oregon, Washington, also way up in New England, and even in, also in places like Illinois and places like Minnesota and Michigan tend to be pretty liberal nowadays. Urban areas are always liberal. Rural areas tend to be pretty conservative. Now, what about income and education? Well, the more educated you are, if you don't have a high school degree, you tend to vote Democratic. If you have a college degree, it kind of leans toward Republicans. And then when you get to a PhD, it depends. It depends on where you work. If you work at a public university or a private university, you're probably going to be more Democratic in your voting behavior. And if you work for a corporation with your master's degree or your PhD, probably going to be a little bit more Republican. And as far as income, it's easy. The more money you make, the more likely you are to vote for Republicans. Now, what about religion? Well, it's fascinating. I'm going to give away some points for tomorrow. You're going to have to rank the religions from the most liberal to the most conservative. Evangelicals are the most conservative, and they're the base of the Republican Party. The most liberal group would be Jews, about 70 to 30 Democrat versus Republican for the Jewish community, and then kind of the split vote is Catholics. Catholics tend to pick the winner of presidential elections. Now, what about race? Well, the base of the Democratic Party would be African Americans. Obama won 93% of the vote. Whites, almost 60% tend to go with Republicans, not quite, and Latinos by about a 2-to-1 margin tend to vote Democratic in their voting patterns. Now, what about age? Very simple. When you're young, you tend to be Democratic. You want to change the world. The older you get, the more conservative you tend to be. And then you have other things like married people tend to be Republicans, gun owners tend to be Republicans, union members tend to be Democrats, people in the gay community tend to be Democrats as well. Okay? So make sure you remember all that, and good luck tomorrow.